So because Blizzard's nerfing a lot of different dungeon scenarios and honestly a lot of different power points in the game, I want to give you all an unnerfable strategy here on what to do after campaign. So if they decide to nerf whatever dungeon that any of us find that's a good farm, you're still going to be able to do the strategy that I'm going to recommend here in order for you to progress quickly after campaign. Now, when I consider what to do after campaign, I can boil it down to 4 basic ideas. Granted, there's more nuance to it, but if you wanted to consider 4 basic ideas, we have the leveling process, so we have to get to level 100. We have the Renown grind, which is extra Paragon points, skill points, potion capacity. We have the upgrade/gear grind, meaning Helltide zones, getting legendaries, etc. And then lastly, the Glyph system/nightmare system, nightmare dungeon system, where you're going to be upgrading your glyphs, and overall, that's the main end game. So let's talk about the leveling grind. Now, when you finish campaign, you're going to be anywhere from 31 to 50 in terms of levels. You could go way past that if you've done a lot of side grinding and such, but most people are going to end up in that 31 to 50 range. And that means that we need to get a higher level in order to reach World Tier 3 and eventually World Tier 4. As you can see, I'm here right now. The reason for this is World Tier 3 and 4 are going to give you massive loot upgrades to get you a very strong character and overall increase the experience gain that you're going to get. Which means, how do we get there? Well, my suggestion, if I was going to give you a suggestion a week ago, then I would say farm a specific dungeon. However, I don't want to say that because who knows what's going to happen to the nerfs. If they don't nerf anything, Champion's Demise is still a very good dungeon to run. However, if they decide to nerf anything, then Tree of Whispers is a generally amazing strategy to follow. And what I mean by this is finding areas of the open world that have the Tree of Whispers marks is generally going to be a very, very good thing. Because what ends up happening is killing a bunch of monsters in this area is actually really good XP. But also, if there's areas where other players are there, they can reset events for you and actually share XP with you if you're relatively close to them when they're killing enemies, which is actually really, really good. And on top of that, following the Tree of Whispers towards any specific dungeon that's marked is going to be very, very good as well. Tree of Whispers falls off a little bit as you approach World Tier 3 and 4 because the XP you get from the actual turn-in isn't as much as the monsters killing the monsters because, Tier 3 and Tier 4 upgrade the XP you get from monsters. And so the other suggestion that I would have is actually to run Nightmare Dungeons. Now, the key to Nightmare Dungeons is to run a Nightmare Dungeon that is higher level than you by 3 levels and not any less or any more. In order to figure out what tier you have to go for, you have to understand that tier 1 starts at 55, level 55, and every tier past that increases the level of monsters by 1. For example, tier 24 here is 23 tiers above tier 1, and that means that the level of the monsters is 23 levels higher. So you can see level 78. So again, tier 1 starts at 55, and so let's say you are level 50, then you should probably go ahead and just do a tier 1, because that's the basis, the very minimum you could do. But as soon as, let's say you are, level 60, for example, well then maybe you could do roughly a tier 9 or so, and that's going to be 3 levels higher. You cannot do Nightmare Dungeons until you're at the higher world tiers, World Tier 3 and 4, and so you're gonna have to get there by doing the Tree of Whispers, and then once you're there, then you can use the Nightmare Dungeon strategy. Let's say you don't want to level a ton. Well, the Renown grind is the second thing that I'd recommend. The first 3 points are extremely important. The 4th point here, or the 4th tier, is basically useless, and then the 5th tier is pretty good as well. So most of your power is going to be in these first 3 tiers, so I'd recommend doing those first across all zones first. After you finish campaign, you're going to have most of the waypoints unlocked, which is a significant chunk of Renown. However, you're not going to have every waypoint unlocked, and you're probably not going to have done all the strongholds. So if you haven't already, I would go around the map picking up every waypoint and getting every stronghold. The reason for this is, well, it's going to help you actually do Nightmare Dungeons and potentially Tree of Whispers targets by having other places to teleport to. So in fact, this will actually help you with the first method if you choose to do so. After you've gone ahead and acquire every single waypoint and stronghold, the second thing I'd recommend going for is the Altars of Lilith. Now you'll find as you go across the map, If you have a interactive map or some sort of map available to you, which I'll leave in the description down below, you could easily find all the altars. It takes a little while for each zone, about 45 minutes to an hour and a half. It's not super difficult, it's just time consuming. And I recommend going in sort of a spiral strategy here where you go around the edges first and then make your way towards the center. That way it helps you not miss any sort of altar. Of course, after you finished all that, you still need additional renown, and that's when we get to the side quests and the dungeons. Now, the dungeons, you should be doing them kind of naturally through doing nightmare dungeons or getting your Codex of Power, legendaries, etc. But if you want to be just a little bit more efficient, try to pick up side quests in that area where you're trying to do dungeons. And oftentimes what you'll find is that some side quests double up with certain dungeons, so you can complete a side quest and a dungeon at the same time, getting you bonus renown. And of course, lastly, if you have a group, then you can actually split farm dungeons where you, let's say, one person finishes a dungeon over here, and then another person finishes a dungeon in a separate map, and you actually get completion for renown across map despite you not being in the same dungeon. This is potentially a nerfable target, and so this is something that, well, I wanted to offer, but not something that generally will be in the game for long. Let's say you're looking for a specific aspect, however, or maybe you're just feeling a little bit weak in your build. Helltide zones are a great way to kind of boost up your power. Now, the key to these zones, and again, I will leave a map to the down below, is to find the chest of mysteries, which cost 175 cinders. I recommend farming specific events in the area, finding the ore and plant locations around the map, farming up enough cinders to open the chest of mysteries. Oftentimes there's one per zone, 2 per Helltide zone. So for example, here you can see how I'm hovering over them. There's like a little outline. That is considered one zone, and then the other zone is down here. And if you open 2 during the time, you get quite a few Forgotten Souls and Fiend Roses, which allow you to enchant, upgrade your gear to 5, and all of that's going to make you a ton more strong. And of course, if you're looking for a specific slotted legendary, you can also target farm by opening up the specific chests for specific slots. This is going to be a big power increase, and it's something you can do kind of in the midst of doing the other 2 methods, or if you just enjoy doing them, then feel free to level in here and get loot this way as well. Lastly, we have the Glyph system and the Nightmare Dungeon system more in depth. We already know that Nightmare Dungeons can be used as a great way to level, right? You want to do a Nightmare tier that has monsters 3 levels higher than you. Well, if you're looking to upgrade Glyphs, there's a few strategies associated with this. First off, going ahead and upgrading every Glyph that you want to use in your board up to like level 5 is a great way to do it, because the initial levels are very, very cheap in terms of XP needed. As you level up higher and higher, the XP needed is going to go higher and higher. And so I recommend after reaching all your Glyphs to level 5, maybe level 6, focus on one Glyph at a time to get the radius increase. As you can see there, radius size 3, next radius increase at 15, and then you'll end up with a radius like this, where you can incorporate additional nodes to bonus up the Glyph. Another quick tip with this is that higher tier Nightmare Dungeons significantly increase the XP that you get, specifically when you start to enter tier 25, 26, tier 30 plus. That's when it really starts to amp up. And so let's say you want to just hard focus on leveling. Well, you could do Nightmare Dungeons up until then and just focus on, let's say, going 3 levels above you. But then let's say, okay, well, I'm at the point where I could do tier 30s. I'm just going to farm a really hard one, even though it's a little bit more difficult for me to do, because I want to upgrade my Glyphs, which will in turn allow you to potentially push higher and higher. So a little bit of a balancing act with this one, but overall you can just farm them if you want in conjunction with your leveling grind. Because Blizzard's focusing on nerfing elite density and the resetting dungeons mechanic, I wanted to focus on giving you all strategies that you can follow and kind of incorporate whatever you want to do, right? Okay, some Nightmare Dungeons are better than others. Okay, I'm going to do those instead. Let's say they nerf one. Okay, well then I change kind of the idea of how I'm doing Nightmare Dungeons, which is exactly why I'm not giving you all specific dungeons to target, instead giving you overall strategies to follow. I'll leave a link to the Nightmare Dungeon tier list, the map, interactive map, and the Helltide zones for those of you that want to have a little bit more tools to work with. Thanks for watching, everyone. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all for the next one.